the point that I was making when I asked you to describe the Greek concept of logos, the point that I was making is that in the concept of the logos, there is an externality to the logos, that this is the word coming from outside of God almost as commandment, rather than the approach of Patanjali and Bhartrihari, which is that the word is self-existent within the human consciousness, that this does not represent an externality, a command, information, a package delivered to the human being from outside. That is the main distinction that I was making.
So I understand then that rather than being external, it's internal, or might be necessarily dualistic, but to say that we become, each of us, the source of that word that is emerging into the world and making the world moment by moment.
Yes, I believe, can you say once more? You're breaking up and I'm having trouble hearing you exactly, but I think what you're saying is important. So could you please say that once more?
Well, rather than the word being something external to God and external to ourselves as a kind of container for meaning, we have our living being and the very world itself coming into being, and everyone speaks word into existence. It's an inside job.
Yeah, okay. I think that really you hit it with the difference of the dualism and the non-dualism here. In my comprehension of Bhartrihari and Patanjali, I see them as non-dualists, and this is what is especially significant for me. You know, I described before a somewhat later, somewhat tantric a view of the universe through speech, where we have Shiva, and we have Shiva with the desire to know himself, to objectify himself, looking in the mirror and perceiving Shakti. And then Shakti further goes on and manifests still undifferentiated through you have Shiva, Shakti, Sadashiva, Ishvara, Shuddha Vidya. Now these are the five sort of cosmic elements that we'll discover later on in Tantra. And then what happens is that we have the introduction now of Maya. And Maya is this measurement, is this differentiation in which bliss, Ananda Shakti, becomes emotion, where omniscience becomes the knowledge of things, and all the cosmic, eternal, undifferentiated aspects, all the potentials, become differentiated. And what causes this to happen, of course, is the introduction of time or sequencing. So when we speak about individual consciousness, which is what we're doing, it's not really my purpose here to speculate about cosmic entities, but rather focus in on the human consciousness that we're dealing with. So in terms of the individual consciousness, we see it as a reflection of the cosmic consciousness, however, subject to differentiation created by time and sequencing. So the question of externality, of the word arriving from an external source, even a divine source, is not really the issue here, as we're speaking of only one thing. We're speaking of the individual as reflections of the divine or the cosmic, but more important, that the actual reality of the individuals is what we're calling into question. We may use language and speech as that means to question the individual. And we use the process, if we examine the process of speech, of how we end up as human beings with cognition, and why that cognition is specific and why it's varied, then according to the yoga of Patanjali, and indeed the yoga of Bhartrihari, we can basically move backwards in that scheme from the point of believing, assigning a reality to our perceptions and thoughts, to understanding that these are caused by ignorance. And as we move backwards in this process, we can arrive at that source of our cognition, which Bhartrihari and in fact the moderns such as Chomsky firmly lays at the feet of speech. So this is the real significance in making the distinction between the externality of the logos and the internality of the Shabda Brahman, as it's spoken about by Bhartrihari, that we're going inside to find what manifests the outside, and to understand why we are caught up in an illusion of our own creation. Now, grammar, because this is the area that we're talking about. Grammar, of course, to Patanjali and Bhartrihari, goes far beyond the proper conventional use of words and their structure and their meaning. For Bhartrihari and Patanjali, what we see is that by the means of grammar, by the means of determining structures of expression and articulation, and what lies behind those structures, and the meaning that is joined with those structures, that we do a lot more than just speak properly in a conventional sense, but this is the very key to both knowledge and to liberation. Bhartrihari is very specific about this. let me see, I have a quote here. In the Vakyapadiya, in the first section, he says, grammar is the gateway to liberation, the remedy for all blemishes or impurities of speech, the purifier of all disciplines and sciences, and shines in every branch of knowledge. He goes on in great detail how speech is the very basis for all human cognition.